This is the Budget Committee meeting for October 30th, 2024. I am Stacy Dion, Budget Committee Chair. If you could go around and introduce yourself, please.
William Dias.
John Cranberg.
Leah Brown. Martha Davis. Mike Patty. Paula Mahoney. Barbara Ryan.
Jerry Finley. Chuck Hart.
Anne Marie Roth.
Thank you. We have 4 different groups that will be reviewing the budget tonight. The first item is the minutes from October 16th. Anyone have any questions or comments? I had a couple of questions from the last meeting. I did review it. There was a couple of things about I didn't think made it into the minutes from watching the YouTube. One of the items was there was an action item asking for the final total from ARPA funds. We had put it into John had asked if there was a total yet, and Paula said she would get back to us. I just want to make sure we update the minutes to state that. Also, there was a couple of items, I don't know, because I wasn't here, so I can't motion to add that to the minutes. So it's just a question if that did come up and whether we want to add that to the minutes of that we're looking at the ARPA. Sure.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Do you want a motion?
I need a motion to add it. Well, actually, let me go through and then we can we'll add it as amended. So then the other item was, there was a lot of discussion about the default. And I don't know if we captured all of those minutes of the discussion of the default, but I did want to clarify that the default is not our budget and we don't sign off on it. So I'm not sure if everyone understands the difference between the actual budget and the default. Or if there was an action item that came from that discussion that should be put into the minutes.
Is that at the end of the meeting?
It was in the discussion about Tammy having 4 elections in her budget, and that no longer goes into the default. I mean, the four elections aren't, even though they're state mandated, so she's budgeting for 4 elections, and that.
My recollection is that was just a discussion.
Okay.
About what the ground rules are.
Okay.
It was informational, from my point of view.
Okay, I'm just.
I remember. No.
Yeah.
I know the discussion you're talking about.
Yep.
It seemed substantial and was very interesting, but I don't think it's really.
No, there was no action item.
Okay, I'm just.
Exactly. Yeah, there was no action item. That's for sure.
Okay, because there wasn't any further discussion on what to do, and I just wanted to. Okay, and then. Okay. And so that was it. So I guess the motion would be to add the ARPA into the discussion about how much money is left from ARPA.
The discussion of ARPA funds took place, and the finance director, in response to a question as to what the current balance of the ARPA funds was, the finance director said she would get back to us with that information.
Okay. Is that a motion, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to approve with that. That's your motion to approve with that addition. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm not sure if it pertains to the minutes, but I was not here at the last one either. But I thought there was an action item to get the CIP request forms from the selectmen or before?
That was at the previous
Yeah, but
meeting.
did it it doesn't appear that anything of that came to light the last meeting, am I correct in assuming that?
So let's take last meeting's minutes first. Because
That's what I
that-
was, okay.
right, That's
Okay.
last, and then we can talk about the CIP.
Under other board business.
Yeah.
Bring it up
Yeah.
again later in the meeting.
Yep.
I just didn't know if it was discussed, because I'll be honest, I didn't watch you.
Well, I watched the YouTube, it was not. All right, all those in favor, is there any further discussion of the last meeting's minutes? No? All those in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so we have 7, 4, and 3 abstentions. Okay. All right, so the first item is the revenue. I know that it's been updated with the current.
I forgot to print it out.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay. So currently, the revenue from the previous meeting has been updated to show that with a budget of 3.1 million for revenue, we are still at 1.8. So we're still a little over $1 million short on revenue for the calendar year 2024 with 2 more months left. Has everything been updated on the revenue except for departments?
Yeah, the department, so land use, timber tax, all that should be in there now. And I didn't remember that we were that low, but.
Okay, so,
But a lot of the monies that we're gonna get coming soon, you know,
Yeah.
like now, the
Yep.
next few months, so.
and we did get our number for hotel, correct? Is that correct? We got an estimate of what we were gonna get for the meals and
Yep,
rooms distribution?
But we haven't gotten it yet, so the actuals aren't in there, but the budget number is the right number.
The budget number is the right number, okay. So that is about $550,000. So we'll still be we're still a little short. And we will talk about revenue projections when we do the executive, and then we need to decide if we want to adjust them, because these revenue projections are used to calculate the tax rate. And if we are low on if we're low on our revenue projections, it will cause a cash flow issue, and I want to make sure that we're taking a look at this come December to evaluate where we are and if we need to reduce some of the revenue projections for the budget of 2025, even though we have reduced it a little bit, but I don't know if maybe under the permitting, since we're going up so much, that we might want to keep it steady just for a year to make sure we're not so far under our revenue predictions. Anybody have any other questions or concerns about revenue? We did use this current projected revenue to calculate the tax rate. Not the proposed, last year's budget. So that it is important that we look at it and evaluate it as we go through the year. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. We will move on to the first budget review of the evening, and that will be the Historical Museum Committee.
I'm Ruth Albert, and I'm president of the Kingston Historical Museum Town Committee.
I'm Christine Hume, I'm on the committee. And I'm Leslie Hume, I'm from the Friends.
What's the number, Steve?
Give us the number. Oh, it's 4589.
Yeah, the bottom of page 7. The bottom of page 7. 8.
You got it?
I hope our small budget doesn't put my taxes up another $2,000 in the spring. I just want to start out with that. Okay, we're just gonna, can I just go line item?
Just,
to line
if you
item?
would like,
I've
you can
never
go
done
through
this
line.
before, so-
No, it's fine. If you just go through, line item to line item, most
Okay.
people review the increases and talk about why they're requesting a increase or,
Well, I can stop after each one and see if anybody wants to say anything.
okay, go ahead.
The first 01 is our archival office supplies, and we brought that up from 1,800 to 2,100. The main reason for this is, well, inflation, and we're doing a tremendous account right now. The Christie Poultry, I mean, we need lots of archival boxes and tubes and all kinds of stuff. It's amazing how much stuff there is, but that's for the $300 increase there.
Cool stuff, cool historical fact, the Christie Poultry chickens were sold through the department store Macy's.
Yes, we have one of their ads. I
Every one
came
of the
across,
ads. It's so cool.
I've been helping the archivist, and there's a Macy's ad with a chicken in the middle of the clothes. I was like, unbelievable.
Fun stuff, cool
Yes,
stuff.
it is, it is. Archivist consultant, this year we're asking for 8,200, and that is that's this line here, right, for the consultant?
Yes, it's for the,
Okay, so the increase on that, we're trying to find a consultant or a curator that can maybe work the last 6 months of the year, because this budget doesn't come out until in the spring, to kind of teach us some things maybe we don't know, but also to maybe keep the museum open a little bit longer, because we hear comments from a lot of people that we're not open enough hours. So it wouldn't make us be open a lot more hours, but everybody there is a volunteer, and we do what we can.
Just
So
one quick-
That's why the jump from last year is strictly for the.
On this item, is this the item that went to the voters last year for an additional $2,500?
No.
no,
No.
that's the transcriptionist,
It goes in that line.
but it's in that line in what's been paid out right. The-
Oh, okay.
the,
Yes. The archivist, the transcriptionist are both in that.
In that line.
that
So this line, really, the budget should be reflective of $2,500, Paula?
Yeah.
$2,500, so that it wouldn't be shows as such a big increase.
Oh, I see, yes.
Okay.
So you're saying the budget in yellow should be 4,600?
No, it should be
60,
66,
I'm
yep.
sorry,
It's
66.
okay.
yeah.
It should be 6,600, because that was a warrant article. It should have been 6,615, which would make this a 24% increase instead of the almost 90% increase.
I updated it for future.
Yep, I just wanna,
Thank you.
I just wanna bring that up, that there was additional money in your budget that was that was voted in by the voters, and that was an additional 2,500.
Now, next year, the Friends, because in the warrant article, it was talked about the Friends would match what the town came up with. So for next year, the Friends will be giving to the,
We'll be paying the transcription.
they'll be paying the transcriptions. They'll be matching the 2,500 that we got from the warrant article. So they will be matching that next year.
Just so I clarify, all right, so another warrant article is gonna be put in place?
No, the
Oh,
warrant article that passed,
Yep.
if the taxpayers approve the 25, the Friends would match it
Yep.
for a $5,000 budget.
Yeah,
And we'll be finishing a bunch of our of oral histories by the
Yep.
end of the year. And we got the final number from Paula where we're gonna hit that number, and then the Friends will take over as we continue to transcribe the interviews.
all right, so it won't be an additional request from the operation.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
yep,
The
I
Friends.
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Please. Hold on one
Just-
second.
I'm confused as to why the increase is that $2,500 increase?
Yep.
The 2,500 is from, the 2,500 was from the voters last year.
Right, but
Then
82,966
It's
not-
still it's still a $2,000 increase.
It's just 2,000.
2,500.
It's, let me do the calculation. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it was
less
the
than,
warrant
it's,
article
1,600,
$1,600
it's a
increase.
$1,600 increase.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
if you add the 2,500 in, it's,
Right.
yeah,
you don't need an additional,
4,000.
So you're gonna need to appropriate $8,200, but what is being pointed out is it's misleading to think that it is a 100% increase. It really isn't. The amount in the yellow should be 6615.
right. Correct,
Because that was passed by the voters.
right. So it's a 24% increase, but the $4,000 consultant fee, is that still $4,000?
We're gonna spend 4,000 out of the 82 on the consultant,
Okay,
and the
Okay.
archivist will stay flat.
And the Friends are gonna continue to put money in there, make up the difference.
So total
So
is
is that archivist's fee negotiable in any way? I should think they'd be eager to share their knowledge with like-minded groups. I'm kind of
Well, it's a-
surprised that they're charging
Well,
for
this,
it.
these are not, this is not a retired person, she's been working with us since 2013.
Yeah,
She was hired by the town to do their historical records and advise the town on that, so this is her career. She has reduced her practice to 2 clients, us, and a camp up in northern New Hampshire.
Okay.
We're holding on to her like she's precious gold, and we don't want to disrupt our services with her. She's fantastic.
okay,
And one of the reasons why is things like the Christie collection are a fascinating, interesting thing for her to apply her skills to.
okay.
It goes over a period of 8 years and 9 chicken farms in different towns. It's big. It's a big.
It's crazy,
It's great.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. I grew up in Danville, and there were quite a few there too.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I mean, just so you know, when President Eisenhower left the White House, he wrote Andrew Christie and asked him for chickens for his farm in Gettysburg.
Do you have that letter?
Just a little
His-
fun
his-
fact.
A little fun fact, his sons have the
I
letter.
wanna see
His
that.
grandsons, yeah.
Okay, the next line, we're proposing $6,310, and as you can see over to the side, the replacement of money for 1,200 for another PC. And we desperately need another flatbed scanner, which is around 3,700. Now, did we get these prices from?
Well, we
Block Five?
looked up online what things cost, and we know what the scanner is, the Epson scanner is, but the PC is up to whether it's out of the Block 5 budget, what they were budgeting for a typical PC that they would replace for departments. Is it 1,200 still? It's about 1,200. That's what we thought.
So the block 5, so this is the
No,
cost of the flat.
it's,
No, for
they
the-
need it, but it wasn't requested from Block 5, but it's about 1,200 or what Block 5
quotes for computers.
And it's in this number and not in the
Correct. It's not
computer
under
number?
us.
Okay,
Right.
just wanna make sure.
Could you repeat the cost for the scanner, please?
3,700, it's an Epson, it's not a letter size scanner, we have large oversized things, and we go up to 11 by 17 is the typical daily stuff that we do with specialized formatting, types of formattings that get produced, the images that get produced.
And we have definitely gotten our money's worth
Oh, yeah.
out of the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still running, but she's our professional scanner. Oh my goodness, she is scanning all day long.
Yeah,
over
we
there.
scanned about 3,000 items this year alone.
Wow.
But it would be a duplicate piece, correct?
It would be a replacement.
A
The one
replacement.
dies, yes.
So we don't need it right up front.
Right, and I think when we
We thought
talked
we
with,
should put it in there in case.
yeah, when Lori met with with the committee, talking about preparing for the budget, you know, we didn't know where these things were going to be put, so we put these in here. But we don't spend money in things. Say that we don't have to replace the PC, there'll be $1,200 here unspent. You know, if we
We're
don't
very
replace the
tight.
scanner, yeah, we're super tight. If we don't replace the scanner, we're not gonna spend $3,700 on something else. It's just not the way we.
So this is,
Right. So
so
if
I
that
just wanna
doesn't
make sure I
happen-
clarify, so this is in case the scanner breaks down.
Yes,
You're not
yes.
buying a duplicate, it's in case of replacement.
It's a
So
replacement.
there's no
yes.
plan for you to replace the PC or the scanner, it's just gonna be in your budget in case you need it?
Yeah, we're not into, the scanner, that's what we do, when it busts, we would replace it. The PC, we've been told that that Block 5 might have recommendations on the periodic and systematic replacement of equipment.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is, so we've just put it there because we know our equipment is aging, it's over 3 years old now, or 4 years old, so, just in case. But if it doesn't fail, then we wouldn't replace it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a few years ago, we had to come to the selectmen and ask for the money to buy a PC, and they had a little bit of leftover funds in December, so, but then Ellie said to start putting that type of stuff in our budget.
Yep.
In case.
Yep, I'm just, Paula, do we know whether their computers have been upgraded to Windows 11 and whether or not they will be usable after October?
I will look, I'm at the inventory list I have.
Okay.
Not 100% sure right now.
Okay, so we just want to just double check to see,
Okay.
because there is a computer Windows change coming in October, and computers that haven't been upgraded to Windows 11 will no longer be supported.
Really?
Systems will no longer be supported, so I just want to verify.
Okay. I can only compliment Block 5, whoever got picked them, they're excellent to work with, they solve our problems very quickly, very easy to work with, they're extremely responsive, so they're really good support for us.
But the issues that Stacy's raising, you wanna be on top of, because you know what it's like with the computer.
Oh, when they don't support anything
Oh,
anymore,
yeah.
absolutely.
Like, when you know, you're ranching.
In that case, we have 3 computers, we don't have one, we have 3 that we use. Paula, we have 3 computers. So-
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're gonna put the money in the budget, I'm just saying we need to take a look at everyone's computers, because we know that this is an issue, and that we should be looking at it, because after October of next year, people that have Windows-based computers that haven't upgraded will no longer be supported, and that could run into some major issues.
Wow. And I wanted to also say, I'm sorry.
That's okay,
Go
you were
ahead.
nose
Go
your
ahead.
thing, I had no. It's budgeted for 1,400 for 24, it's only been spent 453, is there much more coming out of that 1,000?
I think we'll be paying our maintenance, our past perfect maintenance will be coming out of that, which is our big
Which is
inventory
what,
system,
432?
430 something. And then at the end of the year, there's always good sales. You see, we'll have money left in our archival supplies as well, because there's always good sales around Black Fridays, and we wait for the best sales, and our archivist is a hound to find good things that we need, so, it's possible we'll have some left over there, but if we can take advantage of stuff, then we will, based on what's for sale. We get backup hard drives that we use and rotate, and they need to be replaced over time. They don't last, and Black 5 has actually recommended that we don't keep them too long and that we replace them. So that's what we use that fund for. And we have big terabytes of data, lots of terabytes of data.
So adding the 12 and the 37, I come up to 49.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking for 6310. In that is your maintenance? Are we adding
Maintenance
that to that?
No, it's already in that 1410. And
No.
Oh.
2025. I'm trying to see how you're getting to 6310.
We added it up today.
49.0, 1410.
While she's adding, I just wanted to make a note.
Is that what you
The
said?
next line item,
6310. So 1,200 and 3,700 is 4,900, and 14 plus 1410 is 6,310. Is that right?
Okay.
We're
That's
okay.
all, just
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah, because that would be the number, that 1410 would be our annual, really the number we work with on a regular basis, and the other ones would be the, I guess the insurance in case something happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's,
and the next line, we have now combined line 02 and 03, all into computer and equipment supplies, so that's why that one is 0.
gotcha.
And then the 375, we just kind of keep aside in case we have a chance to put on a couple of programs.
We have dues,
We have dues that we have to pay to
I had a question,
historical
going back
societies.
to the scanners for a second, just quick. So it must be a specialized scanner, because I went on Staples today and I checked out prices for Epson, and the most expensive one for professional series was $1,374. So is this a specialized scanner that you
So
need?
it's a large format scanner, it's not a page scanner. It has multiple types of file formats that we use.
Okay,
And the DPI goes up to at least 2,400 for more detailed scanning to basically be able to edit the photos into reproducible photos
okay.
and papers, the old papers.
So
yeah.
you priced them recently? This is the.
Yeah, we did it when we
best-
did the budget, but again, you know, we would be looking at a time when we need to
Sure.
replace it.
And it is the larger, it does the 11 by
Right.
17, not just the letter size.
Well, the price might come down, so that'd be. that would
That'd be great,
nice. Yes.
yeah, we get the best price, yeah.
Thanks.
The next line, we were told that we were required by, or suggested by our liaison from the select board, that we put in for when we have money raising, the Friends have events to raise money. We have to pay the police, we have to pay the EMTs, and this is what.
Well, the Friends events would be paid for by the Friends, but if the museum had events, the museum has to have the police and fire details as well.
We have to have 2 EMTs and
At least.
usually just 1 police officer.
Depends.
Unless we have a beer tent or something, then you have to have 2 police
But that's
officers.
that's a
So,
Friend expense.
I guess my question on this would be, are you planning to have an event, a public event, the museum, the actual museum, not the Friends, having a public event that would require details? And is it a fundraising activity?
So, I don't know, I can say this, the Kingston Days had events that had a combination of different things. Within that, the Friends had fundraising. If the museum had an event and there was an opportunity for the Friends to have a raffle or something, the Friends would be present to be doing activities within that event. We're getting ready for the 350th of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So we're planning 250, yeah. Did I say 350? Sorry, 250. So we're trying to plan maybe some like a crafter event The Friends would probably cover a lot of those expenses, but it would be a museum-sponsored event, because it would be on the grounds. And
Okay,
swings.
so this is just my take on putting in this. If the taxpayers are going to put in the money, then the taxpayers should, so then all that event would be run through the select board, and approval and budget should go through the select board for approval. No different than Kingston Days. When we run an event, if we pay for whatever, the money goes through a review for, like, if you're spending more than $3,000, your POs get signed. And then that money would go back to the town, correct? So if we were going to pay for an event, the taxpayers pay for a portion of that event, then that money should go back to the town. Do you know what I'm saying? No different than.
I understand what you're saying. I don't know if when the Friends were part of the Kingston Days event, we paid a percentage of what we made on the event back to the Kingston Days committee. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like, Kingston Days is an odd thing because they never use taxpayer money, but, like the rec department, if they were having an event, their money goes back into the revolving fund, which has oversight by the town. So I guess that's my question. If we're having an event and we're paying for that event, then there should be oversight. I'm saying there should be oversight, and the money that is raised from that event should be going back to offset your budget.
So if the museum has an event and it costs money or whatever, say they put on a concert, a movie, an outdoor movie of the Egg and I, as an example, which is one of the things Mr. Christie was involved in. And we wanted to show the movie outside or whatever, and we did that, and we wanted to have people maybe pay $5 a car or something to get it to offset the cost of that. Would you want the money to go back?
Can I make a suggestion that we talk with the selectmen about how because this doesn't apply to the museum.
It applies to all the different departments.
Other organizations, and, ultimately involves judgment calls about public safety, the police department, and I think the best place to have that addressed would be directly with the selectmen, and then come up with a policy that's going to apply to everyone.
Okay.
And I just, I learned of a community not too far away recently which passed a warrant article that town organizations, charities, and organizations wouldn't have to pay for police and fire details that pass the town. So I'm not suggesting that we do that here. I am suggesting that that's something that the selectmen should really, I think, weigh in on and look at the whole big picture, and direct us all as to what they'd like to do.
Yeah, because
That would be helpful.
there's other groups that have associations that have supported, the fire association, the library, and all
I
of
never
those.
know if we're supposed to put it in or leave it out.
No, yeah.
So we're just putting it in and
Yep.
then you can tell us.
I think to me, it's where does the money go to at the end and who has oversight of that money is.
I've been working on this flea market for 40-something years, and it was the good old days when I could just say, we're gonna be on the planes, show up, no toilets, no police, no EMTs, and I'm like, oh, it was so much easier back then.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Cranberg, some guidance from the selectmen on that would be extremely helpful.
And how other town committees are doing it.
Yeah, well, Chuck, do you have anything to add to this of how committees are doing it and
I think
how we should address it?
based on last year when you guys were told you had to have a policeman and that kind of a thing, which you hadn't budgeted before because you didn't know you needed to have it, as I recall. So I think it was decided to say if you were going to have an independent craft fair or a fair, that you would, again, on numbers and days, you would need at least a policeman there and either the ambulance on call or the ambulance there. So you were, I don't want to say told that, suggested that, and that is true. And I would guess that would hold true for any other independent.
So yeah,
Any
that
other-
would
any
hold
other
true
independent
for
group.
the fire association and
Right.
the library, the Friends of the Library, or any other organization,
So I thought-
that the money gets raised and goes into a private organization.
So how were the costs covered in this calendar year when you had events, when you had the event down at the high school?
The Friends paid for everything because we covered all the expenses because it was our sponsored event.
Okay,
And it was a fundraising event.
okay.
It didn't have other elements like the museum being open and other aspects to it, like.
Educational and cultural outreach.
It's a combination of things. So, in those events, we paid for it.
Got it.
So
And
I,
you've got to keep your money.
Yes, because we covered all the costs and all the
Exactly what you're
expenses.
saying. If you expect, it's 100% what Stacy's saying. If you expect the taxpayers to pay for it, it is expected to go back in, and that's not what you're trying to do.
Well, it depends. On Kingston Days, we had the museum open for, I don't know,
But didn't
15,
Kingston Days have a budget?
not for the museum. The Friends paid for a lot of those costs, but we had a fundraising within Kingston Days, and then we had the museum open during Kingston Days. And in those instances, basically the Friends paid for most of those expenses if they came up for those events.
Police
But we
and
were-
fire?
For Kingston Days, the Kingston Days people paid police and
Right,
fire,
right.
and we were required to provide a stipend back to contribute towards the pool of those expenses. That's why I asked, that model would work for the Friends, back to the town, or whatever we did before. But again, it's a combination of activities versus a solo fundraising activity.
so the amount of money that you budgeted is for how many events?
This number was given to us, the 5,500, I think. I don't know how they calculated it.
Okay, that's on mine, is that,
It was 2 events with 2 police officers and 1 EMT
Okay.
crew for each event. I think is basically what the number, I don't know what the number was, but I think that's what we said.
Yeah, all right, so
It's a bigger question, I guess.
it is a
for
bigger
us.
question.
Yep.
I think it's, how I look at it is, if you're going, in my mind, if taxpayers are gonna pay for the details and you're gonna raise money, then there should be some type of budget where that money would go back to cover that cost. So like, if you're having an event and you're spending $5,500 of taxpayer money, then, and you're raising money, then you should be paying that off out of the event's profits, or
We
the
have
event's
done that.
gross profits, so
What if we're not raising money?
well, and I think that's what I'm trying to understand, is,
So I don't wanna.
but I
you're
think
the
we need to,
chairman,
yeah,
But, and this isn't purely a budgetary question, this is a policy question, it has to do with quality of life.
Yeah.
And the efforts of a lot of organizations and individuals. And I think that's best decided by the selectmen with input from the budget committee, including the policy issues that you raised.
yeah.
But I don't think we wanna be getting
Nope.
involved in deciding.
So we'll,
So it'll be a placeholder for now, and you'll let us know
we will,
how to be
right.
treated.
we'll put it as a placeholder
Like
and,
how other nonprofits are doing it.
yeah, how other groups are doing that. I think we should I'm just trying to make sure we treat all of our supportive groups the same.
I mean, we had a group with,
Yep.
the ukulele group came and did a concert on the plains. They had 50 people. They were still required to have a police officer guide people from this parking lot across to the
Yep.
plains.
So we will take that to the select board with the concerns.
Nice group came to provide music for us.
So holding a place is, we're gonna leave it
It
at
will-
the 55?
It will get left as 55 until we get clearance, or do you have a motion?
It's probably gonna get shut down, but I'd like to make a motion that we zero it out until we have a policy. I don't see the selectmen developing a policy expeditiously for the budget process.
Well, can I respond? I don't, so you may be right, but I'd like to give the selectmen the opportunity to do that, and if they don't do that, I think that the people at Kingston are entitled to see that process unfold and your prediction either come true or not come true.
Well, I'm not saying they still can't have a policy, I'm saying, why leave it in here?
Because they were asked to do it by the selectmen, and we can cut it out in anytime, in what, the next 2 months?
We can cut it out until
Sometime in
January 11th.
So we can cut it out in January, anytime between now and January.
So what, if I modify your motion, that we leave it in to 5,500 and raise it to the select board, and we give them until December 13th to get back to us. If they do not get back to us by December 13th, we will zero it out.
Or take up the motion again.
Or take up the motion again.
Well, we appreciate you. I mean, the alternative was proposed last year, and it is to have police and fire budgets have as a scheduled shift so many events. I think, I don't know.
But that's still.
For the whole
But,
town.
right, that's still, so like, right now, we have details in the rec budget.
Right.
Right, so I think we need to go back to the select board and request for some guidance on who and what and how. And, if we don't get an answer, we can revisit the motion and.
I'll withdraw my motion, but I will like to go on the record as clearly saying that if the selectmen told them to put it in, well, I guess it's not, it isn't a policy, but there's their answer. Your selectman liaison, I'm assuming, worked with you on your budget and recommended.
Yeah, but just gave us feedback on what was being advised. And I spoke with Stacy about computers and the details, just to get what was.
I get it, and it isn't, unfortunately, you're the first one who's come before us with this, so
Okay.
you get the,
No,
you get the, no judgment,
We
just,
have broad shoulders.
that's right. It's not the good old days.
Barbara, I agree with you, but I think that Stacy brings up some really good points that maybe haven't been considered yet by everybody involved, and I'd like to see a discussion of it, and all of this stuff distilled down to a policy.
So I will email the select board admin and see if we can get that to be revisited to the agenda on.
Well, a couple of weeks out now.
Yeah,
We don't have a
that's
meeting on
fine.
the 4th.
Yeah, I just was like, what, it's not, it's the 12th, correct? November 12th.
The next full meeting is the 12th.
So I will see if we can I'll go to the select board meeting and just kind of bring it back up and say, we had this discussion, there are concerns from the budget committee of how this is done and how this is used, and it's not, I think it's across the board, and in my mind, if we're doing it for the museum, we should be doing it for all others, or and it is a policy, and we need to evaluate that.
I agree, you should be able to keep your money. I'm the treasurer of the Kingston Auxiliary for the fire, and I get it, where we scrimp for every penny dollar that we could possibly get, but it's clearly,
And then whatever you make, you end up paying back.
right, what's the point, right?
Yeah. But, so everything else, did you have any questions on any of the other line items?
Does anyone have any questions for the museum?
Just to kind of position the museum, you're open a half a day a week?
Yes, and one Saturday afternoon a month.
And over a year,
But we also do special
right, like
appointments,
Kingston.
because I just had people here, Barbara, descendants like myself.
How many people go through the museum in a year?
Well, I don't have a figure for that. I
You
mean,
know?
we're certainly not packed, we'll put it that
Well,
way.
but
I tell
how
people,
about a week?
I'm interested.
We get 2 or 3 people, I would say, 1 or 2 a week that come through on a Wednesday. They schedule to come. I have someone coming the second Saturday of the month. Her family was here in 17-something, and they're coming to see Kingston and review they didn't know that their family had a carriage business here in Kingston. And we were able to show her a picture of her grandfather with the suspenders in front of his Kimball carrot shop, which was pretty exciting.
So would you position like
And I do,
10 people a week?
not 10 people a week, no.
And we do have special, like, I toured people from Illinois for an hour and a half one afternoon. They were like I said, they were Bartlett descendants, and I have a lot of Josiah stuff at the museum.
So people don't sign in, so you have a record of,
We do, we do have sign-in, but you know, honestly, we have so much fun with a lot of people. Did you get him to sign in? No. Did you get him to sign in? No. We didn't. But I mean, I want you to also think about 50 years ago, people started to preserve Kingston's history. They started to care for our artifacts and family things. And a big part of what we do is preserve that history. We have a limited number of volunteers, and we really do the best we can to be available as many hours as we can. People email us all the time, and I do their genealogy research on my own time, not during hours and stuff. So it's a combination of both.
Phone calls and actually in person.
Yeah, in person, but preservation is a big thing, and we're trying to keep a vibrant organization going. I think the history book is a fine example of the work product that comes out of the Kingston Historical Museum. That's our product, and we worked really hard to do that. And
Didn't you say you were gonna open more hours?
with the consultant, our goal is to open more hours and have volunteers working with the consultant during those hours. That's one of our goals.
And if we can find more volunteers, like every organization.
Yeah, I mean, one of our goals is we're always looking at grants and trying to find grants, and one of the threshold questions is the number of hours you're open, is one of the threshold questions, and so we're striving to get there. But I think if we're only open 3 hours a week, I think we still have tremendous value to the taxpayer and the community, in my assessment.
yeah, I was just thinking how many people in town actually take advantage of it and use it.
I know, it's
And you're
disappointing that a
maybe
lot of the townspeople
120
don't
people
come.
a year.
It's more out-of-town people.
A lot of people
Yeah, we
come
see
in,
it.
we see a lot of different people, but you know,
And you have
interestingly
both.
enough, if you call us, I know this, you call, oh, I'm just coming through, I looked up your number, you're closed today, is there any way, I get right in my car and I come down. Ruth does the same thing, and, yeah, so we try to catch it when we can, and do the best we can. It's our passion,
I look
obviously.
at it that we are preserving the history of our town for future generations. And I'm very interested in history. Josiah Bartlett was my ancestor, so I grew up in a home full of history, and I don't understand why more people aren't interested in where we came from and how we got here.
We had a grandmother and her little girl come in a few weeks ago, and we were looking at all the older toys, and the grandmother, we were showing her the older toys and how things go. And we were looking at a bunch of different things, chickens and things, and we were describing, would you like to see our cobbler shop? We'll show you how shoes were made. Would you like to see our firehouse, where the fire horses are? And then we have a tramp house, and the little girl goes to her grandmother. She leans down. The grandmother says, her favorite thing to play is cops and robbers. She'd like to see the jail. So off they went to the tramp house, and she was locked up in the jail to be the robber this time. And her grandmother was the police officer, arrested her and put her in the tramp house. So
Yeah, we get some great pictures.
yeah,
All right.
you just never lose. You never
Thank you.
things like
Does
that.
anyone have any questions or concerns about the museum budget? Any proposed
Come see us.
changes?
Come and see us.
We're
Yeah.
there.
Come and see us.
All right.
Come and give you a tour.
Do the schools use you?
You know, yes, every year the school comes, the second graders come. They have stopped coming since they moved the elementary schools. So the Newton kids and the Kingston kids are a different age group.
Maybe still up to second grade.
Up to second grade, yeah, but they no longer include the community stuff in their curriculum.
I love this dialogue, but
But I pertain.
Yep.
You know.
I just want to make sure we get through the
Thank you for
rest.
your time.
Thank you. I agree.
120 people, $22,000.
You have the ability to make a change or propose a change? I propose. Historical district. Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Susan Prescott, I'm the chair of the Historic District Commission. We have a small budget. I hope someone does. You ready? Yes. What would you like me to go down line by line? Doesn't really change too much from last year.
If you want to go through,
Just,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want to just go through your changes, I
Okay,
guess.
I can do
not-
that. So first of all, we kept the salaries the same. Our only salary is our recording secretary. We've never hit that $1,000. We have a new recording secretary, so we keep that 1,000 in there because we don't quite know how much she's gonna cost through the year. Depends on the length and number of our meetings. Pretty fluid. The COLA, I put in 30. I don't know what Paula, what would it be on 1,000? You know?
I updated it.
You updated it?
No, it was for 9 months.
Okay.
$32. $24.
$24.
Yeah, I updated on for the next one. I've been doing that all day.
Okay, no problem.
The next line is a butter notices. The way that we work with the, what's the matter? You
Nope.
all right?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm looking at the numbers and
Oh, okay.
just made a weird thing.
The abutter notices stays the same, 150. If we have, public hearing, I have to notify all the abutters, so that initially the town pays that money out, and then the, applicant is billed for that, so the money comes right back. Yep. So that's not really an expense. Books we raised from $1, which was a placeholder, to 75, because our vice chair has a couple of books that she would like to purchase that pertain to historic preservation. We keep our books at the library. So we moved that from $1 to 75. Dues stays the same at 60. We pay $60 for membership to New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. Grant match stays $1 as a placeholder. Legal ads $1 as a placeholder. Supplies $200. Some years we don't use that. This year we've used some of that. We sent out a letter to every homeowner in both historic districts, an informational letter.
Why isn't the expense there yet? When did you send the letter out?
Did that go under abutters?
No, it didn't. It was because I just sent in the reimbursement request. So that was
Yes,
100.
you just sent it.
I just sent it in.
So it'll be next week?
Yeah, so it was 145.45 for envelopes, ink, and paper, and I printed it out at my house, so. And then the town paid the postage. So that is supplies. We don't really use any other, in our meetings, we don't use any other supplies usually. Technical consulting, we raised that to 100 because over the past year, there have been a couple of just sort of issues as far as applicants, and we haven't had to bring in a consultant for the HDC, but just in case we have to at some point. There have been, we've been fortunate that we were able last year to talk with town council at no charge to HDC, but we needed to have some issues clarified for us. So we put that to 100.
So I guess my question would be, right, is that just another $100 placeholder? Because if you're bringing in a consultant and they're charging
a lot more than
$100, then
Yes,
So it's just an increase to the placeholder?
it is an increase of a placeholder, only because the likelihood seems more real every year. It seems a little more real to us that we might actually have to spend some money on
Consulting.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, and then the last one is training. We've kept it at $1 for a placeholder the last couple of years because of COVID. We were just doing webinars and online things, but there may be trainings that come up that we would be interested in attending in person. Okay, so that would cover registrations for that.
And I'm just gonna ask the same question. Is that enough? Because I know that a lot of, like, with budget, it's $125 a person to go to in-person training. So I just.
Yeah, we've never asked for much more than that.
Okay.
And we've never even over the last, well, since 2022 is what I have.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't used it, so but I know if you're planning on something,
As I said, it's probably
just
more likely.
it's more likely a placeholder and you'd have to go get more money.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, concerns?
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Welcome, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Heritage.
No, I'm just saying, she didn't have any stories to tell us.
Heritage.
Last page,
What's that?
last page.
Last page.
The number is 4590.
Okay, I'm Ernie Landry, Chair of the Heritage Commission.
Bob Dean, Vice Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we don't have any increases to talk about.
Nope.
We're decreasing the budget, so if you have some questions that you want to ask us, that would be good. I can mention a couple of things. Well, we have postage on there. We've had that for years and haven't done much with it, but this year we sent out a few hundred letters to owners of historic houses in the town and providing them information and advice on maintaining their houses and things of that nature. We weren't charged for that. It evidently was under the town's postage, so it's one of those deals where it was an expectation we had, but never turned out. So we've reduced that down. We've reduced our seminars and training. Well, we kept that the same as last year, but again, it's one of those situations where we do a lot of training, but it's mostly webinars, and so we haven't asked for additional money in that area. So. I guess if you have some questions about any of the figures on here, I'd be glad to answer them.
Could that, just as you got supplies, $1,000 and you've used 269 so far. Is there any reason why that can't be $500? I mean, I know it's minutia, but you have never exceeded $500, so why couldn't it be $500 rather than $1,000?
Well, we had 700 the year before, so it's one of those things where we're trying to get to a sweet spot where we have that figure that works for us overall. But right now, having 700 the year before and 400 this year, probably a little bit more, we're kind of reluctant to go down on that $1,000.
What are people's thoughts about reducing that number, keeping it the same? They did use 700 in 2023.
Yeah. What made the difference in 2023 to go from 0 to, wasn't it 0?
We did a major external printing, 2023, that's when we printed the book
54
for
to
the summer.
Yeah,
700 to
54.95.
We had a few things. We do these books, we do booklets on houses that are at risk of, older houses that are at risk of being demolished. Well, we had one that was a larger publication than we've ever done, so that cost us some money. And then just the normal things that we have every year.
So it's not like pencils and pens?
No.
Some physical supply.
Right. And to be frank, what happens with us is we do a lot of printing. We all do a lot of printing. We do a number of things, and most of the time we don't get reimbursed. We don't ask for reimbursement because it's just a part of what we do on our own. So, you know, we've attended some trainings where, you know, it may be $15 or $30 or whatever. By the time you get home, you don't even remember where the receipt is, and so you really don't even put the receipt in. So there are times when we probably could put in some receipts, but, you know, unless it's an expense that's really a decent-sized expense, it really just doesn't get
Ernie,
addressed.
you might want to explain a little bit. We've got the notes in red about the repair to the museum, the copper roof and all that, which has been squared away, but you might want to update the budget committee on what we came up with the other night.
Yeah, I can give you my understanding of that. Back when the town took over the responsibility, well, the town has always owned the Nichols building since 1898. But at one point, when it ceased being a library and became a museum, there was a memorandum of agreement that was established that said that the Heritage Commission will advocate for the maintenance and repair of the building and prepare a budget to that effect for the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. Well, for the first 8 years, that was really never in play. And so this past year, for a number of reasons, the decision was made that the Heritage Commission should actually do that budget. In previous times, those needs came out of warrant articles or out of the Building Maintenance Fund or wherever. So we developed the budget this year and gave it to the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. But the memorandum of agreement never did say who would be responsible for that budget or where it would sit. And so our question, and I guess the Budget Committee's question, was where does that sit? And what happened this year is that the Board of Selectmen made a determination that the needs represented in that budget would come out of the Building Maintenance Fund, which is a fund that was established in 2001 for the maintenance and repair of all buildings. And so that $25,000 this year will come from the Building Maintenance Fund. And my understanding is the Selectmen will determine going forward where those budgetary requests will go. Is that consistent? Yeah. So that issue is not an issue this year. Perhaps it will be next year until the Selectmen make a decision as to how that should be handled.
Well, the good part of it is in tell you that the 12,200 has already been approved.
Right, it's out of the building maintenance fund, and then
Correct.
the rest of the money.
Right, so that money is gone from that particular list. And the other funds we are still looking at and
Yep.
trying to figure out.
So
It will
it
be
won't
coming out
be-
of that fund. It's
It
just
won't
a
be in
matter
the
of-
operational budget, but there's a potential that a warrant article could be done this year to add money to the building maintenance fund, keep it at a certain level. That's kind of how I understood it. We may want to increase that fund in case something happens to any of our buildings.
That's in regards to the front door, the flagpole, and miscellaneous.
That's correct, it will not.
Potentially a warrant article will be drafted to cover those expenses.
Well, the select board decided that they were going to evaluate them and if the money would come out of the building maintenance fund this year. or next year, whenever they determine to do it. But that there is concern that that building maintenance fund should have a minimum balance in case something happens catastrophic to any building so that a repair could be made. So there needs to be a balance, but that would be out of our hands. It would not be in the operational budget. It would be a select board. It wouldn't go in any budget line item. It would go to the select board and they would use that if they chose to make those repairs. Is that correct, Chuck? That's
Yes.
how, okay. All right. So it's zeroed out for our purposes. Any other questions, concerns?
Thank you.
Trustees of the trust fund. That is, and just so people understand, that is under 4150, correct?
Right.
And then the cemeteries, and are you presenting the cemeteries?
Yeah, so, we can quickly go through on page 2. Well, a third of the way.
All the way down to the
So
bottom.
there's, the only thing really here is trustee salaries, which are the same, have been for ages. The bookkeeping, which we can talk about briefly. And then Paula wanted to add training because it needs to be there. Because the selectmen have always found a place for training when either new trustees came on and needed it, or if there was a special course, a seminar that everybody wanted to go to. But so that's just been added, suggestion of the finance director. The only thing to be aware of is that the bookkeeper that we have has been wanting to depart for a while and is planning on departing in March. Is that right? So
That's what he said.
yeah, and he's agreed to be available after that. But we don't have a replacement, but it was the consensus of the trustees that the trustees themselves should immerse themselves a little bit in the bookkeeping so that we know, in fact, what's going on and what skills and talents we need and whomever we hire. So that won't be a problem. I can assure the board, the budget committee, that's not going to be a problem for the next year, but looking to the future, less than $200 a month is probably not a reasonable amount to expect on an ongoing basis.
So you think next year you'll be fine, but the year after it will probably increase
Maybe.
significantly?
Yeah, maybe. Let's just see what unfolds. But I mean,
Okay.
you got to keep in mind that we have custody of $10 million, right? So, you know, spending less than $200 a month for our own bookkeeper, and those funds are in the hands of two different independent, you know, investment advisors and transfer agents, which he has to keep track of. So you should just be aware of that. He's done a great job, continues to do a great job, and frankly, he won't. I'm positive he's not going to leave us in the lurch. You know, he'll see us through.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, he will.
He's said he's willing to train somebody, but we have to come up with someone who wants to do the job. And we currently have an opening. Historically, the bookkeeper was one of the trustees of the trust fund, and this particular guy that's doing it now was a member, and he moved out of town, and we went to the town and got permission for him to continue to do it. But he doesn't want to do it forever. So
we will figure it out over the next year. but I just want you to be aware of that.
And I think John is volunteering to fill in.
Yeah, I'm not gonna collect the 200, but
You want
somebody needs to know that job that's a trustee. I think there's a reason why historically it was a trustee that did it for a little extra money. So it's not about the money, it's about the trustees knowing what in fact is involved in that job.
Yep.
So that they can supervise and oversee whomever is doing it. So we don't need any money for it, but at least I will figure it out over the next year. Are there any questions on that before we move on to cemeteries? Okay, cemeteries are at the bottom of page 3.
4195.
Right, and they do go to the top of page 4. On the face of it, there's not a lot of difference here, but there are a couple of things that we need to talk about. So there are some increases in supplies and repairs. A lot of that supply, those increases, and they're relatively modest in light of a lot of the other increases that you're seeing in similar line items and other departments. But it's basically inflation. But the other thing that's going on is the effort that Ernie's group is involved with, and it's also involved the library. There's a lot of people who have volunteered to repair a lot of these ancient gravestones, clean them, repair them, set them up, that type of thing. And it's pretty expensive. Ernie, do you want to address what?
Well, it's basically in a plain cemetery, and they're gonna have the 300th anniversary is next year. So there's some special activities planned for the occasion. That's where Ernie came in.
Right. So that's where the focus is.
And so that's repairing the stones and getting them,
It's cleaning them.
cleaning them.
Mainly.
And there are some minor repairs also, straightening the stones up and.
Yes. Well, there is an expense that's not in the budget that we'll segue to in a second, but I want to make sure that we understand the increases in supplies and repairs are related to that, and that effort and the cost of it. It's fairly expensive chemicals. The highway department keeps them safe, so they don't freeze or overheat and that type of thing. It's a relatively unstable chemical. And has to be bought small quantities, that type of thing. In that regard, what isn't in the budget, but that I think that we need to consider and that Ernie can more fully address if it's necessary, is he estimates that there's about $1,750 in additional money that we need for this the 300th anniversary of the cemetery to properly do that observance, prepare and conduct that observance. It will involve the librarian who's got extensive, I think it was a dissertation, I don't know if it was a doctorate or a master's degree on ancient gravestones and historic cemeteries, who has really thrown herself into helping Ernie do this. There's a committee of volunteers. Ernie, I don't know if you want to come forward and discuss further. Really explain what it is you've got in mind. But it probably belongs in our budget. It isn't there because I didn't quite understand the program until Ernie explained it to me.
Yeah, the cemetery is 300 years old, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. As John mentioned, we've got a project going that involves the Heritage Commission, the HDC, the museum, the library, and the trustees of the trust funds to rehabilitate the cemetery. Basically, there was in the master plan, the town's master plan, the Historic and Cultural Resources chapter, one of the goals was for the Heritage Commission and the HDC to get with the trustees to understand what the issues were around maintenance and rehabilitation of the cemetery and to assist in any way we could to help with that rehabilitation. And that's what this project is. And so to date, we've cleaned probably, I think it's close to 400 stones out there. There are 1,400 burials. Not all of those are each individual stones, but there are 1,400 burials. So there's probably another 600 stones to clean, 700 stones to clean. But anyway, we've cleaned those. And so since it's going to be 300 years old next year, we thought it would be appropriate to have an anniversary celebration for it. And also since it was recently put on the National Register of Historic Places. And so the thought was to have a celebration similar to what we did when we rededicated the bandstand a few years ago, if any of you remember that. And so we have a plan to have a ceremony like that on the plains, and invite, you know, the dignitaries who ought to be there, as well as the general public and all, and then have some speakers. We have somebody engaged who will do who's a historian, who will do a tour of the cemetery and explaining some of the iconography and those kinds of things. And then we will dedicate, the DPW is redoing the wellhead, which is a mess. So it'll be a beautiful new wellhead. It will have the National Register plaque on it. And so we'll be dedicating the National Register plaque and that wellhead as well. So it's a nice ceremony to really recognize that cemetery, because it's a significant historical part of this town. And frankly, there's more and more interest in cemeteries across the board. As we work out there, we've had people from Texas, Ohio, and other places coming to look at the cemetery because of Josiah Bartlett's grave, as well as others. And the cemetery is looking better and better all the time. We get people who tell us, my God, the cemetery looks so nice. The grass is now finally mowed reasonably often, and it looks really nice where it didn't before. So the DPW is doing a great job at that. And so it's just an effort to make people aware of that cemetery and just how important it is to us. So we would have the celebration. To do that, we have to have the police detail, and then porta potties for that purpose. And then what we're also doing is going to try to have several exhibits at the library throughout that year on iconography, on the significant people in town who are buried at the cemetery and those kinds of things. So there's a whole series of events that we're looking at for that anniversary celebration.
So everybody's heard Mr. Bartlett's name, but he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, the first governor of New Hampshire, and there are several prominent Revolutionary War heroes buried there who served the Washington Valley Forge. You know, you'll notice this. The Society of Cincinnati, based over in Exeter, and the Sons of the American Revolution periodically go there on, you know, to us rather obscure but significant birth and death dates or whatever, to visit cemetery, you know, to visit the graves of those heroes, I guess, you know, they are. So I thought it was a worthwhile expenditure of money, and a lot of work has already been done. I think that was what impressed me most of all, particularly by Melissa and Ernie. A lot of groundwork's already been laid for it. It's not a lot of money, to be truthful with you.
So I guess I have one question for the select board rep. Is this already gone to the select board and got approval and said, yes, we are? I'm just curious. We are doing this celebration and we, okay.
Well,
I'm just asking the question.
yeah, we have the facilities use application approved by the parties who need to approve it. I don't know if the selectmen have approved it yet, but the DPW, the fire chief, and police chief have approved it at this point. And so it's ready for the selectmen to approve it.
Haven't seen it, that's what I said. We have not seen it.
Haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so okay.
It's in the works, and just while we're doing it, and you might have said it, and I didn't hear it. In there, you talk about having to have a police detail or whatever they're gonna require. Did you put money in here for that?
Yes.
On what line item? I didn't hear what you said, so where is it?
It's not in there.
So So what I said was, Bernice suggested that this effort is $1,750. He explained to me what it was. It's not in the budget. So I'm suggesting it be added, that we add a line item for the 300th anniversary of the cemetery. It will be there for that year, and then it will be, you know, we're obviously not gonna fund it for the 301st. So it's a one-time expense.
And in that, you should just be sure you put enough in there for state police detail. Obviously, we just talked about it for the museum, so we're gonna require, and there's no parking there. It's gonna require some work from the police to.
Well, we did put money in for a police detail. Chief Johnson said it's one person for that, and so we have money for that. We have money for the porta potties. We have, you know, a variety of things like that. The other thing is that, you know, we are hoping to get sponsors as well to help out with some of the expenses on this. We've been fortunate in the past to get sponsors and donors to do things, and so we're hoping that we can get some sponsors and donors to help with this as well, to kind of defray the cost, but that's not certain. We don't know how much we can get as far as sponsorships, and so this is our estimate of what we think this would cost.
The other factor is, and I don't know what the percentage is, that this is a reimbursable fund. The mill stream reimburses a lot of the work and a lot of that stuff.
How would Millstream?
This does not have anything to do with Millstream.
It's the
I understand
planes.
that doesn't. I'm asking the question. I'm telling people that you get income from the trust funds for maintaining of the mill stream. That's all I'm saying.
No,
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Hold on. There's an independent trust that has nothing to do with the trustees of the trust fund. That's managed by a bank out of New York that will cut a check to the town for expenses related to Millstream, which we'll assemble with Paula, we'll submit it, and they mark it up significantly. What is it, 10 or 20%?
10%.
10, and they will themselves add on 10% for the town for overhead. Paula will get that check. That's not money that we have, and that wouldn't be anything to do with this.
I'm just making a notice to the budget committee that it is income that's coming in to reimburse for some of their expenses that they have there.
Right.
That's all the Millstream expenses.
Yes, I'm just saying, it's income producing. You got it, whether it's 5% or 10%, if you have the I can't read it, $2,800 budget, $28,000 budget, a percentage of that is coming back in.
So if people just want to go through the budget, you'll see anything that's got the title Millstream in the first line, that the actual expenses will be billed to the bank, to that trust.
Correct.
What's the name on it? We should probably recognize the family that funded that.
Bartlett.
Bartlett's family, his descendants, because there are other members buried over there, so they do that. So we'll get monies back. Will go to Paula, to the selectmen. Won't come to the trustees. It will,
It goes to
the taxpayers put this money up that you're looking at, and we'll get it back plus 10% in those line items.
Is that under the revenue chart?
No.
Miscellaneous.
The extra is included in the interest, because some of it is interest. But it's, just a reimbursement from the trustees,
So that money goes under the interest, the long-term bonds?
just that small portion, the extra money that we get from Millstream goes into interest. The rest is,
Interest income, not interest to do with bonds.
Yeah.
interest income, because you were asking me about the revenue, right?
Yep.
And then the rest is reimbursed, so it's in the due to from trustees account, which is the balance sheet.
So it's under 3190 interest and penalties?
I don't have the interest, I don't have the revenue in front of me.
Okay. I was
No,
trying-
it's interest from investments. Whatever line that is.
So if the town has funds that it's holding for 60 or 90 days and invests it and earns some interest on it,
It goes in that
it
line.
goes into that, so that's where that would go.
Okay, I'm just trying to,
Make sure it's showing up somewhere.
yeah.
So all we do is make sure that the bill goes out, and then what happens after that is, I know it will go back to ultimately it goes to the taxpayers of Kingston. What accounts you put it in is not So the trustees don't get that back, the town does.
So is the 300 celebration, anniversary celebration, another action item for us to make sure it's followed up to the select board?
I mean,
I'd like to know where we're gonna put that stuff. I rounded up to $2,000, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't know, is that gonna be a line item, is it gonna be a warrant article, where are we gonna put that $2,000?
And adding into that too is, here we go,
Yeah.
the library. What makes that project any of their fundraising type thing any less valuable than theirs as far as police, fire? So there really has to be an extensive.
Oh, you mean the
But this is
museum?
not fundraising.
Wait.
Did you mean the museum, not the what do you
Yeah.
mean the library?
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure you know what you're talking about.
I know.
Yeah, no, I knew what you were talking about.
But no,
Right,
do you
that's another,
understand what I'm saying?
Right,
If
so we've
we're
already
saying
got
to
that.
the library,
museum, it's okay,
I know, now you
one
got
of
it.
those.
right, but that's why
If
I
we're
said,
saying to,
that's why I said
Group
another,
A,
an
that
additional,
they-
that's why I said an additional action item, because I've already got that noted as the first action.
Yes.
right,
So,
because is it one detail officer? What's the policy? How many people?
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot to just, you can't just say, okay, for now.
So that's why I asked about the select board, if the select board had reviewed and looked at this for the facilities, and, there is a cost, and where does that, it's no different than when you were putting forth the repairs for the Nichols building. We should get some guidance from the select board on where does that belong, and does it belong in the operational budget, a warrant article? Is there someplace else that the funding could, because it could also go into the select board budget, correct? And it could be under one of their celebrations or patriotic purposes lines that pays for any type of celebrations and not be under the trustees for the cemeteries, because it is more of a town celebration than it is just for the cemeteries. So I think that would be a couple of questions that should come up and say, where does that budget belong? So we will, is that a motion to take it back to the select board?
yeah,
Second. So Claudine, Barbara, and we will take that back to the select board to get some advice. And again, we'll put a December 3rd. Well, the select board will be at the budget committee presenting their budget on December 13th, so they will have to give us an answer by then.
Okay.
And then we have to make a determination.
Okay, the last thing that I have is another thing that's not in the budget, because when we put the budget together, we weren't aware of the situation, which is the Sexton situation.
Yeah, I had that question.
So, we used to have a sexton rather, who, was paid to do that job. We also employed a series of outside landscapers, who I think the consensus is that that wasn't an optimal situation for the care and maintenance of the cemeteries. In terms of consistency, management, control, quality control, that type of thing. So when Phil, who was the sexton for a long time, became the DPW director, very quickly it evolved that it made a lot of sense to have the Department of Public Works do that job. And rather than pay an outside landscaper and chase them around and all of that, and I think you just heard Ernie say in passing, I think everybody would agree that the quality of the care of the cemeteries has drastically improved. We get a bill for that every month. We visit the cemeteries. If we have any questions or problems, minor questions or problems about flagpoles, lighting, that type of thing, the well head that's going to be repaired at the plant, all of that is followed through on. So the situation's obviously different. So we have to figure out what we're going to do, in that regard.
keep going the way it is?
Well, because you're different people. We have a new highway director.
Right.
It's an acting director.
Right.
Who does not want to be sexton. He
So
doesn't want to be in charge of running the cemeteries. He will do the work, but he doesn't want to do all the other stuff involved.
are
the
you
sexton
asking
does.
to put back a salary for the cemetery
I-
sexton, or do you not know how that's
I
gonna go?
don't know how that is
Okay.
gonna happen yet, and this is not a problem of the budget committee, what I'm about to say, which is, I need to talk to the selectmen. I mean, there's an overwhelming consensus among the trustees about what seems to make sense, and in a general direction to go and how to address that. But I wanna sit down and talk with them about it first.
Okay,
And I think the other trustees do as well. I want to have everybody on the same page. There's a lot of record keeping, there's a lot of paperwork, I'm not gonna bore you about computers and maps and plots and you know, and cemetery deeds and all of that stuff, and there's a lot of work there that, you know, the new highway director is not gonna wanna be involved in. But, you know,
So to the side, do you know how involved Lisa wants to remain involved at all?
I think that she would be open to remaining involved.
Okay.
But just on us, and I know you have to go before the selectmen, but
Well, I don't have to.
respectfully.
No, hold on for a second. We could, you know what? I bet that if I absented myself for a couple of months, the majority of the trustees would move forward with what it is that they want to do. It's my judgment, and the trustees have agreed with me, that I would like to sit down with the selectmen and make sure everybody is on board with what we're gonna do, so that there's no misunderstandings or you know, later, or questions or whatever. I would just like to present it to them. They're ultimately in charge of the budget, they're in charge of personnel, they're in charge of human resources and that type of thing. I want to make sure that everybody realizes the work that has to be done, the pluses and the minuses, that people have other options that, that they want to put before us. I don't want to dismiss those, I want to consider them. I want everybody on the same page, as much as we can get them. But ultimately, the trustees can go ahead, they're responsible for that. They can make that decision, but that isn't how I like to do business.
so I guess, is there going to be a change to your budget from that part-time salary line item? Is there a potential change?
There is a potential change. I don't know what it is, or if
Okay.
it is, I don't know.
Okay,
However, I understand what that is, but I thought it was an interim highway guy. I mean, it sounds, a few things I've heard, it sounds like he's already got the job and he's in there. So, but wouldn't part of the job description not be any of the sexton work already? Are we taking that out right away before we even advertise? I know where they're coming from.
Who's that?
But that, your trustees, where you say you can put it in and do it.
The trustees could.
Yeah. However, do you not have a job description for your highway supervisor, and is that part of it?
Do I have a job description for the highway supervisor? No.
No, I wasn't asking you.
Oh, okay. You were looking at me.
I was looking, and I forget what is over here, so I should have been addressing you, Mr. Selectman, I apologize.
so,
Is there a job description? Is that part of the job description for the highway?
No, not at the moment. Wasn't in the past, maybe in the new one.
It wasn't.
So it was an informal arrangement that developed over a period of a few months. It really worked for everybody. Everybody was on board with it. There are new people now. It's a different mix of people. The paperwork and the bureaucracy has grown and has become very important. So that has to evolve and change. And I, again, want to have a consensus with the selectmen and the highway department, because they, you know, I hope they continue to do the landscaping. You know, I would hope that.
so I think that that's a great point, because there is potential changes that could happen, and you could be required to add salary.
Yep.
We do have a couple months to figure this out. I know that they're working on the job description.
Yeah, that's plenty of
and that-
time.
Yeah, we have plenty.
Right, that's what I
saying.
thought. I don't, you know,
Really,
that's
but,
more than reasonable.
We do need to kind of flag it so that we know that we need to revisit this, and make sure that it's addressed appropriately, because we want to make sure if there needs to be money in there, that we have a further discussion.
Well, John, wouldn't the $12,000 contracted services just go to a different party?
So the two line items, 12,000 and 6,000,
Yeah.
right, the 18 grand a year, which is broken up between them, that's just landscaping. So we've been
Right.
basically the director of highway has contributed and carried on his longtime section duties and almost volunteered it. I mean, it's not officially in his job description, but he did it. And I think he did it probably to make the most important thing, which we're not talking about, is the landscaping, which has been done so well. So we don't want to screw that up. We just got to address this other issue.
And I think that you need to address that with the select board and figure that out. And then
I agree with you.
And then we'll figure out if you need money, then we can revisit that.
Yep. You're right.
Any other questions for either trustees of the trust fund or cemeteries? Any further questions, concerns? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Public comment. Any public comment? Please.
Actually, I'd just like to invite any of you who haven't been out to the cemetery and are not familiar with it, to take a walk out there and take a look at it and see how it looks, and see the work that needs to be done. Because I think that the cemetery is just a key feature of this town, and it hasn't had the treatment that it has needed for a while. And I think we really owe it to it's right behind the church on the plains. To the folks who have relatives buried there, that we keep it in some really decent shape. As I said, we've had people come from different towns and look at it, and when they go back to their towns, it would be nice for them to say, I went to Kingston and I went to the Plains Cemetery, and it's a beautiful cemetery. And so that's what the trustees are trying to do through this project, as well as the DPW. So I think it's an important project, and I would invite you to take a look at that cemetery. It's a fabulous cemetery. And I'll leave you with a quote that's attributed to Benjamin Franklin. I don't know if it is his or not, but it said, "Show me your cemeteries and I'll tell you the kind of people you have." And that really makes a lot of sense. If we don't honor our ancestors, then what kind of people are we? So anyway, that's my public address for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Other board business?
My favorite subject, CIP. So, part of my question earlier, and it got moved to here, which does make the most sense. I thought one of the action items was to get a copy of all of the department head requests for the CIP.
So a copy of all the department heads signed off, once it was signed off by the select board, correct?
Either or,
Yep.
because last night I was happy to say, which I thought was all of them, I had a nice packet, shows that it's actually 2 packets, but they only consist of Mrs. Merrill's and Mr. Combs. That's it. Mr. Combs's clearly looks like it was just changed the date to make it work now compared to before. So we had a lengthy discussion at CIP last night, which the consensus is going forward, it needs to change. A little late in the season to change it going forward, but I still would like to see the rest of those request forms that he submits to all department heads, and then the selectmen sign off on them,
Okay.
which.
So I guess I have a couple of
Here,
questions.
you
So
can have it.
the first, so you had your first CIP meeting last night.
The first one that all of us were at, yes.
Okay,
They don't have CIP meetings. They submit these forms to Mr. Greenwood.
yep,
He develops that report.
yep,
Then he brings it to a planning board meeting, they vote it and then present it, if you get presented. So there's no time for discussion amongst the board, the CIP, with the CIP at all. So it's kind of like when you have the CIP, and I don't know if everybody, I'm pretty sure they all got passed out earlier, but it's a planning document for 6 years out, to make it aware of, so that if there is a project that needs to come forward, we sort of are aware of where it's going. It's not a legal binding document, but it sure is that one important advisory document, which is beneficial to the planning board, huge, to the budget committee, huge. Knowing your numbers. Just last night, there was a couple things on here, the one-way traffic didn't get voted through, but we're scheduled next year to have it all striped. So that was an interesting thing. So here, and I don't know if, like most of these would be warrant articles, you can't go 10% over your budget. So with these just here, without, and we weren't 100% sure, nor am I, have to do more research, whether personnel was part of it, because we know the fire department wants to.
it's 10%, no matter what it is, because it all gets added to the operation.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, personnel doesn't go on a CIP.
No,
No.
10%, all warrant articles cannot be over 10% of the operational
So
budget.
just on this document alone, we're at $922,000 before anything else has been talked about going as a warrant article. Now, like, again, who knows what's going for? There was some speculation on what the vehicle replacement, 100,000, what is that? It's not clear as to what they want the 100,000 for.
Those are annual warrant articles to increase the trust funds.
So that one goes to the trust fund.
That particular one, sure, we sort of figured that all out,
Yeah.
but not to the point of, it doesn't show on here, is it some for the fire department? Excuse me, some for the highway department?
All three of
So just 100,000 clear across the board is supposed to go in.
Yeah, I think last year it
trust fund.
got kicked down to 50 or 75 for
So
one.
it wasn't, so there was only 2 warrant articles last year. It was 75 for highway and 75 for fire, and neither of them got approved.
Okay, but on your document, it's 100,000, so there's 50,000 missing. If you
On-
look at-
Yeah, but on these, it shows fire department, so,
No.
so this vehicle, where did you see the vehicle?
Hi,
So,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
So that would be under highway, and then usually the fire department has a request, but they have trust funds that these go
I
into.
understand that, but you're right.
So a lot of the stuff doesn't come out of the actual operating budget, it comes out of the trust funds.
True, but you still have to,
but those warrant articles still have to be within that 10%.
correct, and to take it, you can't.
Not for trust fund questions.
Any additional money that's added to, on top of the budget, has to be within 10%, and that kind of, it's it's a whole big bucket. You can't increase, you can't raise money over 10% of what the operating budget is.
So the total of all warrant articles
Has to be.
cannot exceed 10% of the operating.
Which means they can't, right now, they wouldn't be able to exceed 950,000, which is if they put all those warrant articles in, plus the.
Just these,
Just those.
Right.
So, the budget committee, so that CIP is supposed to go to the select board, correct? Next,
Actually, it's going, no, he's revamping it because we pulled some numbers out of it.
okay,
So it was going,
it's gonna be revised and then go back to the planning board? Okay. And then once it goes to the planning board and the planning board signs off on it, because I don't think there's an official sign off, it will go to the select board and then it will come to budget. Okay, so you still.
somewhere.
Yeah. We never got, it didn't get approved until February or March of last year, so we want to make sure that we get it before the budget hearing, but definitely before warrant articles, which is January. We should have had it now, so we understand things like the cemetery celebrations and those types of things. We don't have it, so we're gonna try to get this document as quickly as we can, but we need to make sure that they do their process. So we want original copies from each department because the library put in a significant request from what I understand, and, yep,
Well, you're on the capital improvement committee, right?
yes.
So.
They don't really have one, that's the whole thing.
But, isn't that the place to attack the problem?
I think what she's saying
Yeah.
is that they don't have a committee per se, just a committee meeting to hash it out.
They don't
That
have one at all.
It went to the planning board last night, correct?
They tried to.
It went to the planning board instead of having a committee meeting to discuss everything and to make recommendations. So,
I'm just struck by the approach that you're a member of a committee, and I'm not criticizing you, I'm just looking at this.
Listen, we're getting good at this.
No, I mean, so you're on a, it would just seem to me that you should be able to get that as a member of the committee much more easily than we can.
Well, one would think, but I can't, and she's the chairman, and I'm informing, and, these guys were there last night, they can, you know.
So
Pam is the second.
So I think what we should do is if we're not getting the sheets and you would like them, I can try to follow up with Lynn and Glenn and see if they have the other sheets, if you guys can get copies. But I agree with John, I mean, you're on the committee, they should be giving you this information.
So I guess the people that really have the authority in all this process, if I were watching this tape, I would say to myself, you know what? Because anything that's suggested, it would seem to me, is probably gonna have some trouble getting through the budget committee. If there's a member of the budget committee that's been a part of the process, that's saying that the process hasn't been particularly performed that well.
Correct.
So, and not only that, I mean, I'm told that the public watches these things on tape. It really undermines the ability to ultimately get something passed, but everybody sort of ignores the fact that ultimately this is going to be passed by the voters.
Well, that's where we were going with it last night.
The ultimate wax is to win in March. So if you.
How can you back something that A, you know nothing about, and it's given to you at the 11th hour, and I said, don't ask me to support your CIP, because the answer is no. I don't have enough information, which at this point, maybe it is irrelevant. I mean, you know, it didn't, we got the master plan one was dated back, in August 9th, this was submitted for a master plan. for 56,000. We just heard about that put in the budget,
Yeah.
2 meetings ago. And then there was the big discussion on with the master plan. Does it go into the budget? Because if you vote, put it out as a warrant article, it could be shut down, which is true. People have that right. Then it's like split it. Well, what if people don't? It could take up to 2 years to do a master plan. What if it got shut down the second year? So that year and all that money is gone out the window. So there is definitely a huge disconnect. I think we got it a little bit further along than it has been, but I'm not overly confident. We can keep going winging it, but I just feel as though I wouldn't do fair if I didn't tell you how it all went. It was pretty interesting.
So, you want me to add to that?
Yes, please.
There is a CIP committee, we did meet, that is a committee. Albeit, and I said it last night, it has been very inactive in the past. My years on the budget committee, we never, it may have existed, but it was never brought into the budget committee. So, we do have the information, I'm assuming, I know, when he gave those to you last night, I thought everybody said, this is just the highway department.
And Mrs. Merrill's.
Yeah, but the fire department.
Exactly.
The fire department, the police, they all.
Yeah, no.
So we'll get that. But the items that are on there, and I guess I used the wrong words, but it's a guideline. It's a capital improvement plan for guideline. And if it doesn't get on one year, get a warrant article to get it, then it goes on another year. So in my mind, it's kind of a guideline. Because what's on there isn't going to automatically become a warrant article. As we know, the department heads will put in what warrant article, and it may not even be on the capital plan, because it might come up with something that they have to have, and they come up with a warrant article, not relevant to even being on the capital improvement plan. So it's Glenn's in charge of it, the town plan. And it does go through the planning board. We had that conversation with all the money and stuff. Why does it go through the planning board? But it does, and then ultimately gets to the budget committee. And he is going to make some changes. We did have some conversations, like about the $100,000, kind of more having definition of what is on there and what, $100,000 per vehicle. Now, sometimes they put a warrant article in, sometimes they don't, or it's obviously less. You can't worry about the figure because they were suggested not put 100 in, put 75 in, or 50, and it didn't pass. So they'll probably do the same thing this year, and since it didn't pass last year, they may even put one in for back to the 100,000, or the highway department will put in theirs and that. So it has to improve, there's no question, and you will get the information, by the end of the budget period, because Glenn is done. Glenn's redid it. So the sheet that has all the stuff listed on it, the budget committee will get. But again, it's only relevant to warrant articles. Nothing is going to go on a particular budget or part of the budget, because nobody has any of that stuff that's on there in their budget, other than the planning board one.
The planning board one is in the CIP, and
There is an RSA that you are required to have. It is only an advisory board, which is true, but it's an important advisory tool to have going forward, and you can't just, in a budget process, we're looking the budget out. There is nothing on the CIP plan for the police department. That's great. The next 6 years, you're not gonna need anything replaced over certain expenditures. What? What'd you say?
Revolving fund is for.
Oh, stop. We're not gonna start that. Tonight, at least.
But the police don't.
So-
The thing is, the police isn't on there, but they don't. Their cruises is in their budget every year to have.
Right.
But
Unless they built the garage sheds that they were in, that was all done by volunteers. So, in the fire department, well, other than their trucks that they put on there, so.
But the point is
I wasn't
that,
kidding. In other words, he has a revolving fund, and he's been very clear and advocated well that the purpose of this revolving fund is to pay for cruises, so he doesn't have to go through this process. He makes a convincing case. I mean, you know, there are downsides to it that I don't like, but he makes a very compelling case, so he doesn't have to go through this process.
And it's no different than the fire department and their ambulance revolving fund, which they can then use to purchase an ambulance.
And that's a good fund, but that's not gonna buy you you put truck for the ladder that
Yeah.
has 8 stories.
I hear what you're saying, and I think, did they have, and I guess I didn't watch the planning board last night, so are they going to have another meeting? Are they gonna discuss this further?
Did it come up at the planning board last night? Glenn hadn't had the stuff prepared.
I thought that's what she was talking about.
Last night. He didn't say
Well, I didn't watch.
whether we were gonna have another
Meeting.
CIP or
I
if
don't
he was
even know
just
if it
gonna.
was discussed at the planning board last night, because it wasn't prepared, unless he prepared it.
The CIP, yeah, remember he said he wasn't gonna pass it out because now we've changed.
I know, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying, so
so-
it wasn't presented at the planning.
So we don't
board.
have any dates of when he's gonna update it, or,
He's got,
He said November 19th.
He was gonna present it to planning, whether the CIP
Last week,
meets again.
last night's meeting was the CIP hastily convened. And it was not a planning board meeting.
okay.
The CIP was, to discuss the projects. I didn't get the documents that Barbara got. The CIP is supposed to meet with each department to discuss the projects on the list. I had questions ready, but no department head was there. I was hoping there'd be another meeting to do that. It's just not, they're not following the flow diagram that, you know, is required. So, and the other problem is the master plan is outdated, and talking about a CIP without a master plan is like putting the cart in front of the horse. The horse is the master plan, so that's the big problem. We need to update the master plan first.
And that's the
That's the 60,000.
And it's gonna take 2 years. So right now, we're just looking at what are the immediate needs in terms of capital improvements. That's really all we should be discussing, until the master plan's updated.
That's it, right there, isn't it? I agree with you.
You need to have a list, what's red,
But
urgent,
your ultimate
yellow.
conclusion, that all we should be looking at this year are immediate capital needs, that makes process simple and focused. And the rest of this will have to sort itself out. I actually agree with everything you're saying about it, right? But
No,
the question is,
I'm
where am I gonna fight this battle?
No,
this
but
is
no,
the
it is,
question.
it's our battle. The problem is it's been in disarray and non-existent. And as Pam says, it needs work, and
You
yes.
asked me to be on that committee.
I know, 2 years ago, and they
Yeah.
never called you, you never had a meeting, was it long ago?
And-
And Pam's right, department heads were never invited in. I mean, this wasn't a meeting that they even knew about, because it hasn't been run properly to be able to do that. So for now, Glenn will have, whatever that November meeting, you will have it before then.
So-
A sheet that he'll develop the sheet, everybody can get a copy of the sheet.
Yep.
But it does need work, and it does need to follow the plan, and Glenn has got to start to do that, so that it's more relevant for next year when the same thing comes up, that the CIP has the meeting, the department heads are invited in, that have, that submit the sheet, and explain it as to what their needs are, so that the CIP people can look at it and say, do you really wanna do that, or, whatever the reason might be, because it's gonna eventually come back to the budget committee.
Yep.
For that reason, so, and we're just gonna have to give it some time, because it was in disarray, and so.
So what we're getting from this is that he's going to be presenting to the planning board on November 19th.
Yes.
Glenn. Presenting whatever CIP we have. You're still requesting to have all the original sheets from the
No.
department? Okay.
Don't bother. I mean, it's at the.
There you go.
It isn't good. At this point of the game, let's focus on.
So we're gonna focus on the immediate capital needs, whatever are being presented to the planning board, which we need to figure out if it is $920,000 that they're gonna put in warrant articles.
Well, nobody, you can't say that. It's a sheet, but that doesn't mean they're gonna put a warrant article in.
No, I'm just
So you
going with,
can't- I know, but you can't, in my opinion, you can't use that figure and say, okay, now we're gonna worry about the 10% law. We're not gonna have from that sheet, and I should have brought the copy if we knew we were gonna get into it. We're not gonna have $900 and something thousand in warrant articles for capital improvements.
okay,
So let me ask you this, because I think Pam's last two sentences were a perfect summary of what we should focus on. The master plan. Putting the cart before the horse. We're not gonna put that on a warrant article, are we?
The 60,000?
Yes.
I sure as heck hope so.
I'd rather have it on a warrant article than a budget item.
So let me ask you a question. We've been through this before. This goes from my experience in another life and another planet called Massachusetts, where I actually have responsibility. What happens if it's turned down by the voters?
no means no.
I think
So, what, you know, because there are voters who are bright people but don't watch these films or whatever, but say to themselves, you know what? You know, my house taxes are $9,000 a year. You're telling me that they can't fund a master plan out of the $9,000 a year and the $10 million that they have somewhere else? Do you know what I mean? In other words, so you really should be putting on there things that either are optional items, which I don't think a master plan is an optional item, or things that if they get turned down, you're perfectly happy to honor the will of the people. Because the worst thing you can do is to go to the voters and ask them for approval on an expenditure, have them say no to you, and then turn around and say, I know you said no, we're gonna fund it anyway.
legally you can't do that. And so I think the last conversation we had was to get an exact figure from Lynn.
Yes.
I don't know whether we got or not, I haven't seen it, but she was thinking it was more than 54, maybe around 60 or 63.
She said it would, right, so currently in the budget, the number that she has in her operating budget is 60,000.
So she updated that,
So,
okay, so.
I mean, what it sounds like is that we want to make sure that that's the number.
Maybe you could do it 2/3.
Well, we talked about with the last, at the last meeting here, we talked about, we asked her, is it okay to do 2 years at 27, or let's say 30,000? And she said yes, and even Glenn Greenwood, we talked about that last night, said yes. Most places even do it because of the volume of work that the commission has to do with it. 2 years, you know, they do it in 2 years. So we were talking about breaking it down and maybe going with 30 in the budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then 30 the year
I think
after.
that's a great idea.
And of course,
I mean,
the problem is it gets voted on this year, and then the next year it doesn't. Well, at least you've got half, and they can determine.
But if we vote it and put it in the budget this year, and it passes, and then the next year, if the budget doesn't pass, it would still be in the default.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
So it can go through either way.
right.
So I mean, that was the thought before. I would personally prefer to see it as a warrant article, but I don't
I'll
believe.
play devil's advocate again. So at deliberative session, people stand up and say, let's remove $60,000 from planning board of the master plan. It passes.
Yeah.
We vote bottom line,
Yeah.
so
If,
they can, if they really wanted to.
But that's on them. That's not on the selectmen or on us.
I'm just saying, you
That's
know.
that's on the town meeting.
So we're not following, but I'm just saying you could be not following the will of the people. A lot of people want large expenditures, like 60,000 as a warrant article. If they had followed their own CIP plan, this would have been, how long is it overdue?
so
It's been overdue for quite a while as far as.
we're not, I mean, we need to work with these other boards, with the select board, with the planning board. I mean, we can all sit here and we can speculate on what we need to do or what we should have done, but we need to work moving forward, and we need to work together so that we can get where we need to be, right? So I'm not disagreeing with anything you said, but I think we have to figure out how to move forward. And we should have done stuff in the past and we didn't. And we can't go back and undo that. We can only figure out what is necessary to move forward and what is in the best interest of the taxpayers. Do we absolutely need a master plan? Do we think this is important enough to put in the budget and so that we can move forward for the next 5 years? Or do we say, you know what, we don't think it should be in the budget, even at 30 and 30. We think you need to go to a warrant article and risk it not getting approved by the voters. We risk not getting the budget approved. But without a master plan, we can't, without a master plan, without a proper CIP, we can't budget for the next 5 years. We can't look forward at the next 10 years. We need to be prepared to be able to work with planning, the select board. All of us should be working together to try to get out of the place we're sitting in right now, right? I mean, we can't, the budget committee can't do the CIP plan. That's not, we're supposed to review it and it should be coming out of the planning board. We need to work with the planning board, work with the select board to say, hey, we are really concerned about certain items and the money. We want to see what your top 5 capital improvement things are. You know, what are they? Because we don't really want to see more than X amount coming out of warrant articles this year. We don't want, you know, we could send it back to the CIP and we could say, budget committee only wants to see 400,000 warrant articles for capital improvements. That would be a recommendation.
But that's,
We don't know.
no, I know, but we can't take capital improvement and say there's gonna be a warrant article on all those items until the department heads decide that they wanna do that. I mean, I just, yeah.
That's what we've been told from the planning board, is that each department has already filled out their sheet and asked for capital improvement across the board, and that's where this 920,000 is coming.
But it's what they're requesting, and we don't like to use the word wish list.
It is a
That's
wish
what
list
it
if
is.
you're planning 6 years out, but the department heads don't live in a vacuum. They have a sense of what is going on with the budget overall, what's going on with the school end of the budget, they live in town, they're out and about, they know what's frankly politically possible, improved, and what isn't. And I'm sure that some of them sit down and say, you know what? I'm not gonna ask for this year. This is not a good year to ask for it. You know, the schools need this, the police department needs that, or whatever, you know, and so we're not gonna do that. And I assume that they probably talk with the selectmen, who are representatives of people, to get a sense of what is prudent, and they put it all together. So it is a wish list.
The warrant articles, petition warrant articles, we can't control them. But if highway comes in and wants $200,000 for a particular thing, they've got to come and justify it, because the selectmen are putting in the warrant article. And we very well may say, getting the feel of the people and the taxes and all that, and say, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to put that in. That we're going to put that in for you, you know, because of whatever the reason. Whatever the reasons are, and it may get cut in half, it may get canceled, or we may, obviously we have to approve it and put it in.
If the fire department had a significant equipment need one year, they would probably, maybe the year or 2 years afterward, not put in for the $100,000 to go to the trust fund. In other words, they say, look, we got the truck that we needed. Well, I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is unfair to call it a wish list.
So I think we obviously want to work with the planning board to understand, and we're supposed to be able to be presented with the CIP to have an understanding of what is needed and long-term budgeting requirements. It doesn't sound like we will have what we are exactly looking for this year, but it's better than what has been in the past. We are involved, and there was a CIP meeting. We can say, yeah, I get that it wasn't, I know it, I get that it wasn't what you expected.
Oh, no, it actually was. With what, in researching and all of that,
But
yeah, I wasn't surprised.
But at least it happened, and we do have some motion on it moving forward, and it is gonna get presented to the planning board on November 19th. My guess is it will be presented to the select board shortly after that, and make it to the budget committee probably at the December 13th meeting. Because if it doesn't go to the 13th, it won't happen until,
We'll have it probably before then.
yeah, it probably, and then it won't make it until January 8th, or whatever, not December 13th, but. But we have to look at that, you know, I think we have the January 8th meeting before we have just, that is our final say. On the 11th is our final say of our budget. So we'll have to do what we can with that information. It's not, to me, we've made forward steps because we actually are talking about it at budget committee. So I'm gonna take that as we're moving forward, and I'm gonna say the glass is half full, half, not full. But I think we need to try to work with them and try to get more information, and maybe it's, you know, the department heads need to be able to go to those meetings and discuss it. And the next meetings we're having, highway, police, fire, then the select board. So if we do have questions for those big departments on whatever they've requested, we have the ability at the highway, police, and fire to ask them about any of those things that they put in. We do, and we know, I mean, we sort of know, because I think Graham has clearly stated he's gonna put in for that, and I don't know if he's putting in anything else, but we have the ability to ask that. We also have the ability to go to any other department that we've already met with and ask the liaison to reach out back to a certain department and say, are you putting in a warrant article? How much is it gonna be? Just so that we can have those discussions. So I think that's, you know, trying to work within that liaison, working together to try to come up with a budget that makes sense. And I mean, we still need some updates to the budget. So as we're working on those, we will continue to evaluate those items. And we are getting action items, and we do have the ability to make changes to the budget, to any line item. We can propose those and vote on them, and we can continue to do so. So I think having that information is probably would be really nice, so we understand where we can make some of those changes without interfering too much with operations, but we're gonna work with what we have. Go ahead.
John brought up taxes. We were watching the school board meeting, and their budget meetings are starting to happen, and I think everybody needs to remember that their tax bills are more proportionally geared to school expenses than town expenses. And I think it's important that everybody try to attend these meetings. I'm not sure they're right on the calendar right now, because I thought there was supposed to be the 7th and the 13th. But I hope everybody will make an effort to attend these meetings, and instead of being keyboard warriors when your tax bills come out, actually go to the meetings and do something about these items. That's it.
Is the school budget committee meeting coming up?
On the 13th, so I won't be at this meeting, at the high school.
At the high school.
And the 7th, right?
Yeah, there's one on the 13th, and then the following week on the following
Previous.
7th, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, if you go to their calendars, those dates are opposite, so I just sent an email to Phyllis.
They switched them.
Yeah, so, anyway.
Okay. Anyone else have any other board business?
Matrix committee,
What?
the matrix, how was that? Is that-
I have not been to a meeting because we haven't been able to get quorum. We haven't been able to get quorum. Because I was away and then there was other people that weren't available, so we are hoping to have another meeting.
I just read in the select board minutes, the potential of a 6% raise for one employee and then a 3.2 COLA.
So
for
the
next year.
3.2 COLA came up because the select board voted on a COLA across the board, and they are using the Northeast percentage instead of the national percentage because the cost of living in the Northeast is higher and surrounding towns are using the Northeast COLA and not the national COLA. That is the select board's determination. The 6% COLA for an employee, again, is there. Sorry, the increase. That will get presented when the select board presents their budget in December. They'll present all those numbers. That number should be in their budget because that employee falls under the select board budget. So we haven't looked at that yet. And they can explain why they chose to increase that one and not the others. It's not I saw that as well.
But what's it, 9.2 in 6 months? That's pretty good. If you add 6% to
Plus the 3.2. Yeah, I think, I haven't seen those numbers for all that salary, so we can.
It was just, I read it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the numbers, so I'm gonna take a look at, when we get those numbers, we can take a look at it. But I do want to clarify, because I wasn't here at the last meeting, and there was a question about the wage matrix redoing police and fire, and so the issue that came up at the wage matrix was the police and fire are trying to figure out how to use this, and wanted to look at what 10 steps would be versus 7 steps would be. So it's not redoing the matrix, it's just taking the matrix and looking at 7 steps versus 10 steps for those departments. So it doesn't change the ranges, it doesn't change anything except for more increases, which I think they're having difficulty understanding that it doesn't give you more numbers, it stays in the same range, it just divides up smaller. I also want to just talk about liaisons real quick, because I think I'm getting some feedback about people who haven't been met with or haven't been met with, and the expectation of liaisons. Just want to make sure everyone understands that if you're meeting with a department, you should be meeting with them and going over all the numbers with them and being able to help them present their budget if they need help. There's some people who have concerns, and we want to make sure that we're working with our departments, we're working with the planning board, we're working with the select board, and we're all trying to get to the end piece of what's going on, and that we're trying our best to kind of facilitate all of these exercises. And that's it. Next meeting, November 13th, is Government Buildings, Highway Department, Street Lighting, and Solid Waste and Recycling. We will have the interim Public Works Director will be presenting. I asked them if they wanted to postpone. They said they were ready. So John, you're ready?
Yeah, I think they'll both be here, but Tom's gonna take the lead.
Okay.
But I think,
All right.
I mean, Phil was here tonight for the cemetery, so.
Yeah.
I think that'll be fine, you know,
Okay.
there's no surprises in the budget, as you can see, there's not a big deal. What's in,
Any other questions or concerns before I call it? Motion for ending of meeting? Motion.
second.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'll see you on the 13th.